Hello, Thaddeus. It's Friday, and I've dealt with those future Jeff Yahoos. Seriously, President Reagan too? So now, it's a return to normalcy and regular time traveling.
Well, it's gonna be the future soon, and I won't always be this way. When the things that make me weak and strange get engineered away.
Once again, we find ourselves in the midst of tragedy. And no, I don't mean the people in Congress or CNN's journalistic standards. Though, one would think, if they were better at their individual jobs, we might not have so many occurrences of mass violence. As I record this, Boston is currently being shut down by a large paramilitary force. On one hand, it's kind of comforting that our government, should the need arise, be able to quickly occupy a major metropolitan area. On the other hand, holy Jesus, our government can quickly occupy a major metropolitan area. Over the past decade or so, we've witnessed a number of tragedies, from mass shootings to the 9/11 attacks, and despite a large expenditure of money, manpower, and international rapport, we're no safer than we really were a decade ago. Now, unless you're afraid of a rogue stylist shampooing your hair at about 30,000 feet, there's really nothing to say for the massive amount of security measures that have been put in place. Now, if you're going to make a, if you're going to measure who has suffered... Puppies, stop! Now, if you're going to make a metric... Puppies? Now, if you're going to make a metric... Really? Could you stop that, please, for like 10 minutes so I can record this? That'd be nice, thank you. Now, if you were going to make a measure of who has suffered more in our fight on terrorism, us or the terrorist, and you went by things like, say, the economic effects of 2 unpaid wars, something like how much freedom has been lost, especially since we're gotta go by Bush's "they hate us for our freedom" metric, then quite frankly,
terrorists win.
Thank you, Counter-Strike announcer guy. While we could discuss the particular measures put in place, while we could discuss each individual tragedy and the security measures put in place afterwards, and the lack of effectiveness at keeping us safe or preventing further tragedies from happening, given the collective education of our Congress and elected officials, you would think that perhaps one of them might have the humanities analysis skills enough to realize that there is a commonality between all of these: our international foreign policy. Perhaps they might point out that other people are not too keen on violent interdiction on anything and anybody we happen to disagree with. So what I'd like to discuss in some small part is how we deal with tragedy, particularly in terms of our political rhetoric. Now, I could use current examples such as what was said after 9/11, or what we talked about to get us into Iraq, or perhaps all of the instances of gun violence, or the Boston bombing, which that has some weird alliteration to it that I'm not sure I'm okay with. But given our society's inability to separate rhetoric from fact, and to choose fact over rhetoric, those examples will probably just cause more controversy and argument in the comments than actual understanding of the fact that our government uses tragedy to protect and promote its ideological assumptions that we need to spend more money on military expenditures and security measures. So instead of using those, I think I'll just use one of the foundational myths of America. Because trashing the sacred mythos of America's founding and telling what really happened is clearly a key to success here. So, back to Boston. It's here that Paul Revere, America's most beloved silversmith, commemorated the Boston Massacre with his famous engraving. And for the purposes of our discussion, or lack thereof, the word massacre means the killing of more than one person and or non-person entity counted for the purposes of state representation. The real story is that a rowdy mob of colonials were assaulting a group of British soldiers guarding a building, and after such assault from snowballs and rocks, the soldiers accidentally opened fire, killing 5 and injuring 6 more. And thanks to Paul Revere and others, this massacre was used as a sign of British imperialism and British control of the colonies that should somehow be put a stop to, despite the fact that they were much better tea makers and much better television show makers than we have ever been. Now, despite the fact that the soldiers were found pretty much innocent and not guilty of wrongdoing, and can you imagine the police being found guilty of violence against the 99% Occupy movement protesters? I don't think so. So despite that, this was generally made to be grounds for dickishness among the American colonists towards the British. So pretty much this was the start of about 200 years of American foreign policy where we kind of come in and start screaming at the people, hey, stop being oppressed, stop being oppressed, hey, stop being oppressed by us, hey, stop being oppressed by us, hey, stop being oppressed by us. Oh, no, you didn't just try to stop us from oppressing you. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And now for some disproportionate military or paramilitary response to you. Oh, and American public, if you could just be a little bit afraid of what's going on here, I mean, really, it's more directed at our policy and what we're doing to them and the fact that you keep helping us do that makes them a little bit angry. You know, really, if you just kind of got along the lines of, hey, maybe we should be building schools and houses and, I don't know, water filtration systems in some of these areas, and therefore helping to develop their economy and maybe making it a little bit less crappy place to live, they might have better things to do than be angry at us for, say, overthrowing their democratically elected governments because those democratically elected governments didn't exactly meld with our ideals of what those governments should be giving our companies. Yeah, our history isn't that a very great one of promoting democracy. We're actually pretty bad at it. And that's just counting South America, not even the Middle East, where we're not doing a good job of that either. Anyways, I got a little bit off track there. I've got to get this video done. I've been behind all week on getting things done. So Thaddeus, oi. Thaddeus, I will, oi. Oi. What? You forgot to lead the book. Seriously, if you care that much, do it yourself.
And, after boasting this way of my tolerance, I've come to the admission that it has a limit.
Thaddeus, I will see you in the future.